I'm not getting anything from that.
Njala, that money, it's a money allocated by government.
Those schools, they don't have a right. Ya dikanga dithabise motswadi ise makweteng. Go bone motswadi ko na sa isitswe di lawyereng, motswadi ko na di lawyer se di mo romella di demand letters of demand. You know, so ba demand in se be ba attach the property like the law is very clear. You are not allowed lawyers that are handling those cases. They are very heartless. Very heartless. So in
It is called that school fees. So you got
well, that's a general joke.
So I'm like,
Welcome, my beautiful Mzansi Voice viewers, to another episode of the Green Table podcast. And today we decided to tackle issues that we see on a daily basis happening within our schools. There are many issues, hence why today we decided to invite the National Association of School Governing Bodies, NASGB, just to have a discussion with them around issues that are happening in our schools, especially here in Ba, that we see on a daily basis. And I would like to introduce my guests for today. Beside me, Zakes, Nqai, the deputy chairperson, and then Thabiso, Radebe, the RS. And I would love for them all to introduce to the viewers and their roles to the association in to the Green Table podcast.
yeah, let me say thanks to everybody and the viewers. My name is Zakes from NASGB. I'm the deputy chair of the Sedibeng region. I'm responsible for almost 250 schools that are existing governed in terms of all the SGPs that are existing. And also as the committee, we are responsible to rebuild or revive all the branches that were there before, so that the governing part take its own role in all our school and for the best environment of the education for our learners. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think just to add on what Nqai has explained, it is important for people to note that one of the critical role that is being played by an association to give direction, guidance, support, mentorship to the school, to the different SGBs across the region of Sedibeng. Sedibeng region is made up of two districts, which is Sedibeng East and Sedibeng West. So our role is to do that role, providing leadership and capacity and support, you know.
Okay.
Yes.
And what are some of the basic responsibilities of the SGB members within each schools that they are placed in? Some of the basic fundamentals.
Yeah, I think before I respond to that, I was expecting my regional secretary to introduce himself. I never heard him say
Okay.
because he once said he's an RS, and other people might not know who's RS, what is RS.
Okay.
No, okay, my name is Thabiso. I'm the regional secretary of the National Association of School Governing Bodies in Sedibeng region. Okay, myself and Zakes and other colleagues were elected on the 10th of December 2022 at the second regional conference that was held at the school called General Smart High School.
I remember we were there.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, perhaps just to answer your question, if one it's very clear with the question. Our role as the SGB is to make sure that we want to produce the quality education for our learners. But that is not the core. The core function is to manage and govern the finances of the schools. Okay. In other words, it also gives more encouragement to the parents, so that parents should start to be involved in all the school activities, and also to make sure that they do take care of the environment where their learners or where their kids are educated or are attending school. That is one of the core functions of our SGB, because SGB, by its own meaning, it's a governing board. Yes. So if one understands what is governing board, a governing board is somebody or a structure or a body that oversees all the activities from the management side of the school, the SMT, the teachers, the learners. Remember, we have the stakeholders, the column. One, teacher component, parents, learners. So I want to keep triangle. So that triangle needs each other because it should complement each other. Where the teacher must play its own role of teaching, the learner must play their role of getting educated. The parents must safeguard and ensure that our kids are attending the school and the school is disciplined, and the funds or the administration or the management of the school is running effectively on a daily basis.
Okay.
Without forgetting that the core business of a school, Mshan, is curriculum delivery. Curriculum delivery, to make sure that at the end of the term, a school term, we must produce results. So it's very important. Amongst other issues, obviously, is the policy development. In a school, first and foremost, a school governing body must adopt a code of conduct for itself, and again a code of conduct for the learners, again the code of conduct for educators within that school. It may be just a difference in terms of who applies what. Remember, in a school, our core business is governance. Then we have the principal who is doing the management, the day-to-day running of the school. So it means the principal implements the decisions of the SGB. The principal and the SGB, they must coexist. They must support each other in this co-responsibility of a provision of an education. Then others, then they follow jwalo here. But the key mandate is provision of curriculum. And also the management of the finances. And it's very important. The SGB takes the overall responsibility to account at each end of the year. Got December, got third term. We have what we call a parents annual AGM, annual meeting, where we'll go back and give feedback. Or now as SGB, how did we use the funds of the school as allocated by the department, their education. But at the very same time, at that very same meeting, then we present a budget that must then looking forward into the following year. So that is that. So it means being an SGB, it's not just an issue, and you don't use your general knowledge, your common sense. That's why SGBs are governed by an Act of Parliament, Act 84 of 1996, what we call normally South African Schools Act. We don't do as we please. Everything is being measured, is being monitored according to that Act. Yes, South African Schools Act.
Yeah. Perhaps just to add on what my RS have said, I think once he put more emphasis on the curriculum, it reminds me of the section, I think it's section 6, if one is correct, of South African School Act, where it says curriculum and management. In other words, the SGB, we have a say to determine even the language policy, to say this school, because of its own magnitude, se batla hore bana bana baka rutwa language efeng as a home language. For example, we had a challenge in some of the schools where in LD model C, but the second language it's Afrikaans of other languages. So because of the majority of Banabamo, it's a lady Africans. In other words, the SGB can determine in terms of the majority of learners. Sorry, Harry Kenyan says so talk about English, says so talk about Sezolo code to accommodate our African boy and child. So that's another part of the SGB, to determine and review the policy of language. Same applied, because we need to be jealous of curriculum. One says the SGB, we are not serious about this. I'm telling you, the future of South Africa and the future of our learners, it's about doom. In essence, if you go to other countries like Nigeria and you can see them. But Most of them are educated. That is why you find the foreigners dealing at South Africa, because because we don't invest and we don't take education seriously for South Africa. So as the governing body, it's one of our mandates to ensure that we want to produce better leaders. So that tomorrow, but when we produce amba, to govern our country. Thank you.
And as you can hear, my beautiful voice, Mzansi, you can clearly hear from the responsibilities that are placed on the SGB members that are not just any other responsibility. It's huge in terms of them talking about advancement of the curriculum so that we produce better leaders of the future. And when we look at that, specifically when we talk about curriculum, the issue that I want to touch base on is the issue that we see each and every year, especially at the beginning of the year when the schools are about to open. Overcrowding in our schools, where we see most of the learners who can be placed, because I think this year we had, was it when the school started, 1.3 learners who couldn't be placed at some of the schools, especially here in Gauteng where we are based. And I want to find out from Lona as the SGB members or from the NASGB, what do you think causes such an amount of overcrowding, especially in our region in Gauteng, that we see our learners mostly not being placed, and even those that are placed within their classes, there are a lot of overcrowding where you find a lot of number of learners in one classroom, which makes it hard, as you're saying about advancement of the curriculum, which makes it hard for them to have a conducive learning environment. What are some of the causes that you have established to say causes this overcrowding that we see on year and year?
Ntho ya pele e ke nalang hore ke yona e tlamehile re shebisisa hantlentle le se the root cause ya overcrowding. We must take a responsibility as batswadi. Boholo ba rona re le batswadi sometimes ha lefapha le ntsha di notices around what we call an online admission. But re bana le mathata. That's one part. We don't respond immediately ka nako eno. Re na le problem re thola we wait until the last moment. Then we thola re na go bang the last moment re bana le ntho. But the other issue ngwe hape ka hara Gauteng Masedi. Ka hara Gauteng hona le challenge ya hore Gauteng as a province experience what we call the in-migration. But from other provinces like Mati, the so-called rural provinces. Once they have settled down in Gauteng, the second step by Nkang, Bar Clarata or Batlise Banabana Ufiana Libona Mon, so that Ba it's in Bahonor Ba, Tolemunyet opportunity or Bahono, Tola the study opportunities. Kiona Emwabotata in migration, Erna Leona Caro. I mean, every experience as a province. But again, also tlamele admit the happy issues here in migration. It's like greatly expansion of what you call informal settlements. If you look now at areas like CDB, you'll find your old townships. Some parts of the old townships, house are told because house are that issue in case younger people, young adults in these areas and your low cost RDP places or in the informal settlement, some of them in those depot houses. So Kimotola Leona and trainer ya overcrowding. Areas so you cannot challenge Erna Leona. But the other issue overcrowding is also caused by issues of we don't have a clear, we don't have a signage in terms of the what you call the subject choices. You find the situation where overcrowding is also sometimes informed by the subject choices. Sabana you find all of our kids by clinical class tourism as to oppose science class physical science. So that's part of the issues that we are grappling with them as the department, as the stakeholders. But the other issues also is issue of resource allocations. Resources must follow the people. But unfortunately, you'll find that planning your government at times is very slow in terms of responding to the changing dynamics on the ground. The changing dynamics, we find that whenever how it's booking, we are towards Ferenacheng, there's a new settlement, extension 28. People are beginning to occupy those houses. It tells you that in the next coming few years, it means the influx, the need, it over towards the area. So it means also the planning yarona. Very slow. The government is responding very slow towards the issue of infrastructure. The other issue obviously the aging infrastructure. So they cannot even cope. They cannot even cope with the demand. There's an issue of demand and supply more. The demand is so very high, and the supply in terms of the government, in terms of the building of schools, they are very slow. Hence, for so generally and innovation, a department they say offer the NASGB an opportunity by what we call self-built project, the classroom, in addition to the provision of the mobile classrooms, department as a temporary measures to address issue of overcrowding. But one of the long-term planning by NASGB self-built projects, the classroom school SGB for that responsibility or no, build extra 3 or 4 classes. So the main issue is coordination. Because you must ask yourself another question. As from last year, the department has taken a conscious decision, and which is a very correct one, of migrating the ECDs, the early child development centers, from social development into the mainstream Department of Basic Education. It means that particular move is going to help the department going forward to do proper projections in terms of the numbers. Because now you will have issue grade RR as part of mainstream education. So at least going forward, we think that the planning, it will be better informed, because you are knowing, or at least banaba grade R batokalan school nkara area ena ke bana ba bakae. So that planning, that movement, hore ho tloswe ECDs, early child development centers, from social development to basic education, it's one good step. To address issues here coordination and allocation of resources, because the issue is allocation of resources, and resources we speak of the buildings, the resources in the form of the LTSM, the resources in the form of the teachers themselves, the educators. So but the other issue perhaps we must also not be blinded. One approach. Remember, the outbreak of COVID has almost a giant leap. We have almost within nako e khutshwane, we have usually more ketelang re adoptile model wa hore tse ding tsa dintho have been done visually. So perhaps in the future, one of the issues, it may be a solution, a long-term solution to resolving these issues. It's no longer going to be compulsory classroom to access education. Already, in fact, there's been some amendments on the basic education amendment laws. They now accept issue online or visual learning as part of learning. The other one is homeschooling. Homeschooling, where now you take your own child or register a department, then how register a department, how meet the requirement. How study when as a parent then the department will be giving the department progress or progress around. So there are many avenues so to exploit. The only biggest shortcoming we happen to still be poor in terms of this resource, because once you enroll on a visual school, visual must attend that class. It means necessary support equipment on every time have to attend that class. It means there must be technology equipment necessary. Resources like hore a kgone hore a interact le di-educators tsa hae. So but that is the future. But gradually we are almost going to that angle in.
I think my secretary is correct, but that approach, we are still far from us to reach it, because if you can look the system, the way it was systematized, it was done in a sense of those who are in the middle class, might access that particular system, but for the majority in the country, I might count more than decades for us to be in that level. But that is
the direction.
Yeah.
You need to break that barrier.
No, it's true.
And people must vote with their own feet, Mshan. If we are going to experience that future is not going to be delivered to us on a silver platter. It means structures that's they represent the aspirations of the poor and the exploited must begin to advance this challenge in Ribona. It's a challenge today, but it's possible. But it's something that we'll have to deal with.
No, I think those are the topic for future. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, you touched the base, and if I come to you, Mr. Nqai, when you talked about the basic duties of the SGB members, you talked about management, governance, especially with finances. I think during the Premier's State of the Province address, he mentioned that he has set aside about 6 billion for construction of new classes. Yes, and so how, especially from your organization, how involved are you going to be in terms of making sure that those funds, when they are distributed, are spent in a manner that is going to help in terms of this overcrowding, to ensure that classes are actually being built and proper costing and management of such finances are done in a way that we don't see where now people will be saying, no, there's corruption in that school, a certain amount was allocated, but there's no class, what. How is your organization especially going to be involved in the distribution of such finances, especially in your region?
You see, Mshana, as the leadership in this region, this is what we are encouraging to other governors, in particular from different schools, that, we must take the issue of government finance very serious. A public purse is very much important, because we should be accountable for each and every cent. So our role as the governors, remember, as the governing body, for us to be sure on finances, I think the principal, the treasurer, the chairperson become the signatories who have the access, or but basically, on the side, if there is a project, you must follow or be guided in a correct way. A project, you don't just wake up tomorrow and appoint a decas, for example, of anybody and said, no, come and build these 2 classes for us. You should take the processes, and you must take the correct route until such time you realize your project. What we are saying from time to time is that people should be arrested. You see those who are not taking the public purse very seriously while they are governing the school, those people they deserve them. But what I like is that together with the NASGB and the department, there are workshops, there are courses that Radi attend, especially the Dilangadi finances, as to teach all the parents how to handle the school funds, so that by tomorrow, Bahono are accountable. Remember, we have the accountant, Kodikolom, Batlo cheka di buka, and then Bafaneka di audit. And remember, we have 4 types of auditors. Renale, qualified, unqualified, adverse, and disclaimer. So, in other words, once your school fall under this tray, especially the serious one, the disclaimer, department there, Nqai so section 58, because the funds it's alone, fund. This is what we were fighting for, because there was this proposal to say the district, but in terms of the basic education law amendment bill, they were proposing that they want to start to centralize the issue of finances.
The procurement.
The procurement, so that procurement is at the district level. And to Rona as parents. In other words, by so allowing that, we can be involved in the education or in the governing of the schools without a proper function of analytic finance. Remember, we can't run anything without finance. But encouraging our people to acquire skill, because our SGB, it's a voluntary thing. People must know that.
We are not being paid.
That is why I also be fashionable, because there is no incentive. It's just voluntary. But guess what? If you got tomorrow, there's a law that says once you have been elected to people are going to kill each other, fighting for possession. Like we see to other organizations, this thing is happening. Once you become the chairperson of the branch, obviously are employed at municipality of somewhere we are deployed, So I'm happy now because it gives me a clear understanding to say, but when the SGB are parents who are still sober, because the interest is to see Banaba Batola education, we must be jealous of this infrastructure because most of our township schools, they are quiet. Guess what? But we have a concept once in now. I go model C, go put the you become a better person in your township. Status. And that thing on its own will end up also sustain. Because it's very implicate a lot of money in total someone's booking I get transport, take school fees every month. In train journey on its coast. So the Kolota allocation and the produce and compared to the results that 2022, most of the schools are delay goes the bank it's allegation. So in Kisamania overpopulation of overcrowding. It's about us fellow at the status, but the education curriculum is the same. But in turn, this is what I used to discourage my teacher really the column because so in fact if I got out to one someone because encourage my teacher all born more but for example where I am I may be this year over 6 teachers but it's still for so it's only encouragement to start to take your other child serious or more feel to serious. Thank you.
Okay. But before just to put it to give it more.
But I wanted to just squeeze in this question before to you. Okay. You mentioned that the being an SGB member is voluntary; it's not paid.
Yes.
Isn't that maybe one of the reasons why sometimes we find this management of funds, especially where you find that SGB members are involved in school mismanagement of funds? Don't you think that is one of the factors that causes yes, that people are. And now you have to manage a school of 8 million or a project, and you're not getting anything from that.
That money, it's a money allocated by government and for the best interest of the education. It's not done or allocated for other things. So obviously, you must be conscious. How about our leader in the governance to say whatever money at the school is not even less and it's not yours. There is a section 27, that talks to subsistence allowance. That section only gives you an allowance for all the SGB activities, your meetings, and others, or at least allowance to enter into voluntary, but whatever center service and to contribute, reimburse back. That's finished. That is why I'm saying now for now, I'm still happy for that because once on all incentives, I'm telling you, the college will collapse. And SGB, we are not there for funds or for other things. Now, to be honest, it's about to preserve the learning culture because how can education deteriorate? It deteriorate in a sense some of the people they are no longer taking education serious. And can you imagine what type of generation producer in more decades to come? So let's take the education and invest more. At the end of the day, I'm not xenophobic, but my fear is that I don't want to see in 10 years' time bana ba bona ba hiruwe di-shopong ba bang ba most of them not necessarily o hlatswela batho dikoloi, it's useless but ho sena di-skills e re di hlokang for country ya rona because of education, because re qetela re ba more populated is because of this foreigners. Let me call them foreigners, but I'm not xenophobic. These guys who come from neighboring and other countries, because Batla are educated, because they took education serious from their countries. Aba fitla ka mo o bona rena le MM ya le foreigner ba re tlo shota fela ka ba le body mayor, and I think it's coming there because how ka thula sheba for you to be in another position no qualifications tse batla but ga ikemsetsa ka thuto.
Yeah, Thabiso, you wanted to say something before?
No, I just want to add weight on what the deputy chairperson was explaining.
Okay.
In fact, the issue ya ho promote or encourage hore my teacher should not only be on focus, be only on teachers. We must encourage all these public servants. Because those people are being paid from the public coffers and themselves, they're involved in the building your capacity and to your country. Yes. Why don't you show confidence so that we are able to can manage this thing? Because one thing that must be clear, Mshan, we are not advocating a commercialization of education. Education, especially public education, is a social service. It must never be accessed through the highest bidder. No, it must be made a point that every citizen of this country, every child of this country, Tamila banana opportunity to attend the ECD, Early Child Development Center, through the provision by the state. It should not be issue or Tamile ube from a particular family so that you can afford that opportunity. Myself, I did never had an opportunity or choose the language that I'm not a product of crutch. But the need, the necessity, the researchers have shown for Rwanda Academy School from ECD level, progression ya highly development ya highly growth ya high in terms of curriculum. It's far better how you compare Rwanda Sakang aba exposed to that level, and it's very important. We must protect it, like the deputy chairperson is saying that we must be very jealous of the public service, but then it means we must go an extra mile in terms of getting the highest ethical commitment from people who are involved in the education ya bana ba rona, ya country ya rona.
True. As you can hear, my viewers, that the gentlemen that are with me today are very, very passionate about what they do, and very passionate about education, and very passionate about the SGB members' engagement within our schools. And it's very encouraging to have leaders like that who are trying to show us the way, especially youth that are coming up, in terms of how important education is. And you can tell that if you don't take your education serious now, you will have problems in the future. And as parents, we need also to take measures to ensure that we lead our children in the right direction. Coming to that, another issue that I want to talk about with my guest today is the issue that is very painful, and we see it happening on a daily basis within our schools. There is a lot of violence, gentlemen, within our schools. I think, is it last week where we saw one learner passing away at Dinokane school, which is very sad for a young man's life to be cut short in that manner. And this is a trend that has been happening. Even in the last year, I think a number of students were killed within school premises or just outside the school. What do you think, based on your experiences in terms of working with learners and governing the school, are some of the causes that cause violence within our learners in school at such young age?
Hey, that issue of violence in the school is very painful. In a sense, our handlers, we must put this on record. Violence is not produced in schools. Violence is a byproduct. It's from the neighboring community. That behavior, normally, it gets fertile from the community. Then most unfortunate, then it spills over into the school premises because key behavior but also we must again go further to say that one of the problem renal violence is the display of violence in the media. In different platforms of media. You look the way almost the way that is being broadcasted, you'll find that the domestic violence is being televised as if it's something that people must by emulate, by copy. Violence in the street, violence, almost everything. We are living in a violent environment. As a result, that particular violence community structures school. So the dikolo di tshwara mathata ana a tswang ka community. So it means if we are to win the war against violence, we need to make a reintrospection from as society. We need to make a reintrospection as a family structure. One of the issues of violence is so very rampant. Our family structure is dysfunctional. The single parent families in that's one point. The other issue the culture of wanting to use violence to sort problems. The issue of conflict management. Restorative justice. Restorative justice, it encourages violence the root cause that particular issue. So issue of violence is very broad one is. But also, like I said, media, but also the psychology in our community role. Believing this wrong belief we can resolve dispute through violent ways. It's very dangerous. The relationships are on. The way the relationships are not managed from family level, we are society, we are family halwana, we are kereko halwana, we are political halwana, we are sports halwana, we are misebeti more sebesanteng halwana. It's a makadi levels. So if we can first address that thing from all these identified structures, the easier it will be for the school a normal environment school, because it's what run to do it's what can school school from these different areas or resolving the disputes. I mean, you can take it simple through a protest. How to lodge the constitution right there, we can embark on a peaceful protest. But how to lodge the protests in many instances, they end up in the loss of lives, they end up in a destruction of property. So those are some of the ways that how can we do things better in a more peaceful way. The other issue, into your initiation. I'm a proud African man. Myself, I've undergone the initiation in Arona. But the way you look, it's being they also need to be educated. How kingpin ya di gangsters. How will bolong ra khutla mono o tlo lwantsha batho ba malapeng ka harolla pala eno o so ba kholiata say everybody ka apela how some respect because when I was on the bollo that is not the origin ya le bollo li etsweditswe o fuwe di values. Or how this is how you need to behave yourself, how to conduct yourself. This is how you need to behave yourself. So one thing we must break this vicious cycle. Create the gangster. The gangsters or I mean, at one time there was a time when the groupings which must be discouraged.
Yeah, you see, our challenge really society is that we embrace these particular wrong things. You see, it becomes a norm. For example, we
normalize the abnormal.
Yeah, it's normal now to say December Balbul and January. It's normal. We live with that. I want to raise something else to say. We are busy negotiating to say, you see, the wrong thing was, we are correct to say, but by then, Musue never mtamol. A very married person.
A matured person.
Yeah, man, no Musue. Next month to Sobola, this is where the problem lies. And it's a tobacco, it's about commercialize. Wait for profit, take a mabolo, because the number, the more you get the number, the more you make a lot of money. So he be easy on the side of safety when coming to this thing, because we started to vet now. The Batbabolo Tang, the Banabao, the concern from parents and determine the number. They are never guy for now we can never guy. Ubanjan, I give on talk about the number of now. Let me go out to that part. Let me come to this one near violence, Dikolo. You see, I give out to blame my parents, but Thabiso is correct. Sometimes this thing is the way now we live and the way we approach our kids. You're not doing it on their contributor. And after Taberenta, na reta di colo a dumping place. As long as I register this colo, you put the problem. Oh, comment we guys long when I ask you saying when I want all our jaisa batay. So environmental one out to Katungas next Africa school or so called la on next so end up ne other things. So this thing is the life way plan, the lifestyle of Nqai from Katung also contribute to the behavior. Therefore, we learned up send all the gangster. And another thing that I've learned, the gangsters, some of the gangsters or gangsterism are formed. But we protect for one to get the protection. I'm new in the school, and I school on bully or now what is going to happen? Analyze which gangsterism or which group is stronger than other group. Then I went to join that particular group, not necessarily willingly, but because of protection. But there are other interventions that I like from this law enforcement, especially when they do this surprise search, because it's allowed. I think it's Section 8.
Section 8, random search
and seize all the items that all allowed. I think that intervention from law enforcement is very much important because they only identify the collateral matter, and it happens surprisingly because even the principal just embark again or say true. Secondly, there was this thing here. Another proclamation from that level, the present where we'll identify Balaba Sokodisa, just Reloba discourage, Arababon said it wrong. But in the long run, I've learned that thing is not working, Shan. Especially secondary school, said it wrong, Baba Sokodisa, Reloba Bonsa, Piloba Togo. You'll find out if you friends Sabonaba Tabela, and now even fun to have this mama more. Ulsalo committee something I am more so that thing because it doesn't change the behavior of the learner. Instead, some of their friends. You are correct when you raise the issue of a media. You see,
content.
You see, the move to South Africa because he got 80% from outside, then 20 So this 80 infra problem in a sense, if you can watch a movie at the column somewhere, only the learner, similarly the group, they are in the boss of succeed in life. That's about it. The drugs, how shall you movie? They live the luxury life ho feta bane ba ikemiseditseng so di move tse di fana ka negative impact ko kelellong ya ngwana because ngwana o batla wa chifa dito very quick nowadays bana ba batla ntho tse material tse tswara that is why re na le di early teenage pregnancy bana ba rona ba banana ba rata ntho tse tswara same apply le rona ba tswadi ga ba supporta because ngwana ha sna dijo ka tlung a tla ka groza ga sa sebetse you don't ask you don't even entertain lo re tswa kae jwang ibile o re ya shota e kare a ka tla le mo next wa mo encourage ga a qhobe lo a mshimana a tle ka TV wa bona le mo ne rile teng ona le TV nyana ha tle ka TV tsa tse kholo tsa so mo encourage ga ka tla le the last number jwala o mo tsitswa ka mga TV o tsa phelo fetsa so ntho tse ka ofela dia contribute and bere producer bana ba violence bere producer bana ba batlang go iphilela lo izamela so ba batla di etsa sekolong and remember ba di etsa sekolong ba hlikifetsa bana ba tletseng thuto sekolong so ntho its own becomes a violence but believe me issue ya violence yona itlolwa ntshwa lo se dibeng mona a se ngata compared to other years tse fitileng ra re lwantsa ebile re le SGB re file priority the last part ya the intervention is a question gore bana ba iswa ditonko ba iswa di winter camp at least to the winter camp on all the people who are the motivation speaker ona le batho ba bangata ba fitlang ba tlo ba ruta ka bophelo ba rute le ka bo bona le age tse le stage se ba longo sona so that ngwana ha tswa winter camp during school holidays at least o tla na le kelellonyana e hlaphoetsweng a le beterenyana a ithotse gore once ka paisa in life obviously tlabe ke tswile trekeng so di program tse a ka di pusha ga encourage le batswadi gore ba fane ka support hobane motswadi nako nngwe yena ha o nkile ngwana o fuma identify ho yena o montshitse problemeng wa bona ebile le plate ya ngwana e thola ke ga no e thola o intercamp man o tlo budgetsa hantle ba ngwana ya hayo ebile o tla o jetsa gore ngwana ona o tshale haholo ko o ipotsa jwale ha mtswadi a sa nke responsibility a dampa ngwana rona but these interventions they are not permanent we just coaching them or ha ba change behavior ba khutle be batho ba ne re batla build us chaba se hantle thank you.
Maybe just to sum it up, obviously one thing at the SGB members. Like earlier on, Deputy Chairperson explained, one of the issues also the SGB members, they are the ones who are sharing the disciplinary committees currently at school in terms of making sure that the bar is at hearings for Banaban. And there's measures but obviously the majority of them that must be corrective. You must correct this behavior in. But ultimately it's not the first or the second or the third, simply the fifth the sixth offender on the very same criminal behavior in misconduct as tabulated school code of conduct. Then that child obviously, as the SGB recommend the expulsion. We start with suspension. What are suspend and 7 days? What are then monitor? Sometimes I refer to places like Bosanka or Bahono Tola or admit or I have problem with drugs. I'm an addict in behaviors and one refer to those people or to professional help. But after all these interventions, I take off one is how to lord chair. Remoliki, Ramazami, one on Ahonu, who's Abu Pilombo, then the last option, key recommendation, expulsion. And the expulsion can only be sanctioned by the MEC. So it means ordinarily SGBs we can only recommend. Research recommendation here district, then the district director, then annually covering motivation based on the findings self-funding gatsona then MEC. The MEC is the only person who then can take a final decision to expel mwana ona. So primary na going to deal with some of these wrong elements that they about this long process at
Yeah. Just to add what the RS said, I think expulsion in might not necessarily say in someone are complete out of the system education. Sometimes the HOD might revert it.
Diversion.
Yeah, but it's a transfer to another school depending on the radius and after that babu monitor, because the intention is to correct, is not to destroy this disciplinary correct behavior, but depending on the schedules. You see, there are cases that serious where schedules are once a child transgress immediately, you can also suspend that particular learner immediately because of the incident. But other setting, you might take the process until is this child, we can say it or change our for. That is why you start to monitor to so subtrim sharp expansion, then you enter the recommendation. This is the procedure that we need to follow.
But do we have psychological support within our schools, especially the CAS? Is there psychological support?
Ideally, the department and another department of psychosocial cluster that deals with counseling, and it's meant to provide counseling to almost every person who's within the school environment, because only some traumatizing incident events school, but the reality is that there's not enough capacity, because but then we need to move from the direction that says, as there's party school establishment that he post, we need, Rona as an SGB, we need to advance an argument that says issue these social workers, it must be an integral part. Public school, it must have its own social workers. If you go to the private schools, that is the reality. A focus attention, so that have pick up a certain behavior wrong, they easily can intervene and provide some remedial steps. So we need one the challenge that how do we bring it in, because currently no refer high problem refer social working, and we all know the reality of the situation because their country is having a shortage of social workers. So it means the cases drag forever and ever. So in short, the answer is to say that we need to campaign to come up with a campaign that says each school must have a social work. One school, one social work. One school, one social work. So that Kara school had problem anything, we can easily detect it and easily attend to it. Yeah, because violence is a very serious problem.
No, it is.
It is a very serious problem. Yeah, that's why they even end up losing their lives. It's because of the violence, the cycle. The vicious cycle of violence is so very dangerous and it's so very endemic. It must sometimes, we must find a way of putting it to a stop.
It is very enlightening to hear of some of the processes that are there, some of the things that SGB members, in conjunction with the teachers and the government, to say there are things that have been done to curb violence in schools. Just that some of the things are impossible based on capacity, as you're saying, and other issues that we have as well. But it is enlightening to parents, especially at home, to learn of some of the things that we are talking about, so that they can self-introspect to say, what can we do as the community to ensure some of the things that SGB members are saying, so that Lorona get responsibility in ensuring when they go to school, contribute to help the school SGB members. So it's that weight thing. Before getting local lafela, there's the last issue that I want us to touch base on. That we've had reports that there are some of the parents that have been taken to court by some of the schools in terms of unpaid fees. So, but before we deal with that, I just want to find out from the SGB element of things. Are you, as part of the SGB members, involved in setting rules in a certain school? For example, to say maybe there's a rule that you are part of that says if you don't pay school fees by a certain date or certain time or after such a long time, these are some of the things that we will take measures on as the school. Are you involved in setting such rules and especially being communicated to the parents before we can deal with that?
Perhaps even before let's close the other point in our dilagana, your school violence.
Okay.
Just to wrap it nicely. The other issue I'm remind you into community around. Education is a societal responsibility.
Right.
Being a societal responsibility, what we call the NPOs, non-profit making organization.
Yes.
But again, the very same NPOs, they happen to get what we call a subsidy grant from the Department of Social Development. So we need, amongst other issues, to as an intervention to deal with issues the violence. We need to use the NGOs that engagement arona ho refer bana or batole thuso dingata di NGOs tse teng ka rama ka ishina rona tse tholang funding from government. So that funding must also be used to make sure that we cap kapara addressa or kapara attack this issue of violence ka radikolo tsa rona, because sometimes to refer a child to a clinical a social psychologist is very expensive. So we are saying immediately ka townships are on recopa also the SGB, let's have partnerships with the NGOs tsena se things tholang grant funding from government. It's very important ba re thusa ka issues because part of the reason why renal violence is issue of drugs. Drug the drug circulation is so very rife. Yeah, well. So I think we are
close it very nicely. Yeah.
Issue and school fees. Like I earlier said on when school fees kara country arona government it has realized the pressures, the economic pressures they experience the working class. Okay. Like area journalist booking. Area journalist booking, comparatively speaking, if we are to compare booking with Soweto or with Ekurhuleni, is most depressed economically. Many families here, they don't work. Kara family will be very like so those areas, we are a depressed, economically depressed area kara Gauteng. Henceforth, government the studies, the analysis, but a stage wherein public schooling. Mifuta mibedi separating along the what you call the quintiles, quintile schools. So when I call it categorized as fee paying schools. Okay. So that normally your former Model C schools, like your General Smart, is still a fee paying schools. Then what like ramification income on majority, if not 100% of all our township schools, they are no fee paying schools. Okay. Meaning that government enka total responsibility ya ho patalla bana bana ba ka haru dikolo tsena ha tsena portion yana enenyenyane ena e tshwana le former Model C schools ba batswadi ba teng ba etsa direct contribution to the registration, to the the whole teaching or the whole provision of education, government and responsibility. But again, the process that we understand in that. In terms of the South African Schools Act, issue here was set up school fees to go direct to your question. Yes, is a responsibility of SGB. KSGB and Libicarabel are determined or Lemon Sena, school fees and Resinyola Gabukai, Caparasetola Gabukai. But that must be informed. By the social economic conditions about Wapilanka Rayon. You can, for example, be Ketro. I mean, it will be a very injustice for an area eternally be Ketro. SGB, Lena School, Sekara Poloko, Sekara Bitumelo, Sekara Lakeside, Sekara Zone 12, Sekara Zone 13. Evelabata charge school fees ka high rate. It cannot be. It must be informed by the material conditions setting kara area kara community. So that issue alona hobanale a link. It must speak to the conditions about Balenkara. So Section 39 years South African Schools Act Ibuaka Hore. SGB has the right to determine the school fees. It's usual. But how you class money? Section 40 Section 40 buaka liability. Liability to nakele liability of patala school fees liability ngwanke motswadi. the contract is entered into between Lefapha, Skolo, SGB, le motswadi. You see, it's very important to emphasize that point. Then, ibolela hore motswadi le Lefapha la Thuto ba contracting in or nna ke nka bikarabelo re tla patala school fees sa ngwana. Then ho bo fihla stage mona mo tholang hore motswadi nakong ha kgone ho patala school fees. That's when mo re buang ka section 41 ya the very same act e buang ka exemption. Exemption le yona ngwane se means ho etsala lwang ha bana ba retsa profiling ya bana ko dikolong admission during the admission process re etsa profiling ya each and every learner a family re tsebe ho etsalang ka family ena background ntato sebetsa kae, what are their living expenses, because part of the criteria ho checkwa man okay family ena ke family ya mofuta o tjena maemo a bona a tjena ho etsala jwang tjena, you know, all those things they must be taken into consideration. How to determine school fees, but also la re determine what we call exemption. Exemption ke process legally that is there available for the parents. And the moment mo le rabana issue the exemption e hlahateng e ba important ke ka selemo sa 2020 and 2021 hana re bana le COVID. Many parents they were retrenched ba ile ba lose their income tsa bona, and they had to exercise their right ya bona ba approach SGB ba ho SGB hore SGB ke lahletswe ke mosebetsi, then SGB e checke case engwe le engwe ya ka di merit tsa yona. Ha se one pass, ha se pass one pass all, no. You look at the case ya ka di merit tsa yona ebe then you determine okay motswadi ona ho ya ka maemo ho ya ka case ya hae ho ya ka profile ya ha re fileng yona o qualify or athole what you call total exemption. It means have school fees ile 30 ile 1,000 rand. It means re rasa absorb re le school ram exempta, then re tla go department, and then department will take the responsibility or e fill up that gap in. Now go ngwe re thola no mhlomong ho ya ka maemo a hae ne ba sebetsa ba le babedi le mmele ntate ke ana lahletsweng ke mosebetsi sheba hape ntato na gola mo higher salary mme wa sebetsa mara salary ya e nyane. You also motswadi ya ka ngwana ona le right or akaba exempted, like a percentage and perhaps 50% kapa 40% of the fees. But what is important that I communicate on dikolo tsena le right or the charges school fees like general smart teaching. Those schools they don't have a right ya or dikanka di tshwarise motswadi le mise makweteng. O bone motswadi ko ona sa isitswe di lawyereng, motswadi ko ona di lawyer se di mo romella di demand letters of demand, you know, se ba demand eng se bile ba attach le property like the law is very clear. We are not allowed hore re ka nka ntlo ya motswadi re tshwarise re hobane a hlola ho patala school fees sa ngwana ha, therefore re ja ntlo ena. It's unlawful. That practice is unlawful. That's one part of it. The other part ke ena hape Zakes e tla me re explain ha nna ke le Radebe ke sa kgone patalla ngwana ka school fees as an SGB. You don't have a right or because ntata o kona hlolo patala term 1 because kolong tse tso patala school fees tentate di patala ho ya ka di term o patala term 1 jwalo ho fitla be di fela. You don't have a right or le deny ngwana access right or a kene ka classeng because other schools they do it. You also don't have a right or nakong o so limita ngwana hore a ka ska hlola participate into the extra curriculum activities sa school kapa so mo dina le right or ha be ngwana ona na ine le party ya food scheme ya school selemo dina that right, or even to put or kapa to generate a blacklisting mo le tla be le publish tse mabitso a bana ba latelang bana batsadi ba bona ba hloile patala, therefore they are denied access. That is a constitutional right. Education. That's why we are saying we are not for commercialization ya education. Education is a social service. So we mean how we deal with the issues, we must not be emotional when we deal with such issues. We must be human. We must show the humanity. Party about to barona okay. But that child, the other issue, we don't have even a right ya modina ho mofa transfer. You go to other schools and one cases se jwang so are ngwana because term 4 batswadi ba hlolo patala school fees ba na le mofa transfer ya hae ha sa batla ho tswa sekolo kapa la batla ho nka transfer ya hae hore a nna a zame ho etsa what you call job marketing kapa job hunting. That such behaviors by the SGBs that are unlawful. And we must say with a bleeding heart, hore ka hare ho Sedibeng, ho na le dikolo tse practicing that thing, ho na le even the lawyers that are handling those cases, those that are very heartless. Very heartless. O thola ba rekisa ntlo ya mme a phua, ntlo ya ntate a phua. Ba ba na go ba fitlhe ba kene ka ntlong ka mona ba etse what you call ba athama ba fitlhe ba re ba etsa assessment. So jwa fridge, so jwa TV, so jwa, those things are very unlawful. The South African Schools Act doesn't allow those things. E re fa process or NASGB or exempted. The application exemption for school fees in that it can go even to the level of the MEC. The parents must exercise their right. If ba feel school X kapa school A se hatelletse ditokelo tsa ka ke le motswadi di hatelletse tokelo ya ngwanaka hore a ska etsa, they have a right to make an appeal. Baba is right to the doorstep of the Minister of Education.
Can I add something? I'm laughing because you see sometimes RSA perhaps he might not also save the colon school fees. So he is colon school fees.
Okay.
So he got Amaran.
It's a general topic.
So I'm laughing because I'm also implicated. I'm implicated in a sense. One, I want to be honest to you guys over. You see, our parents are abusing the system, especially at the exemptions.
Exemptions?
Yeah, this is what I've experienced. You know?
Okay.
Yeah, for me, I sister what the appeal is over to apply la exemptions. Was a better lemon, Marobata apply la exemption. Obviously, exemptions in all the conditions.
Yes.
But exemption again on its own doesn't give a parent 100% or Oscar Patala school fees. But that they thought apply the exemptions how patalele cent of any amount for cover because the government might give you a certain percentage.
Sure.
We are correct, Thabiso. So it's untrue because of Olojadi fridge. I think it's totally wrong. It should not come to that extent.
Never, it must never come to that
You
point.
put it very clear to say the argument should be between the school and the parent.
Yes.
So the child should not be affected by anything, attending to classes or participating to any activities. That is why parents, most of them, they are abusing the system. The system is correct. It will sabat to basa because one of the requirements is that in particular about low income, especially basa. It's a market I apply like in Naxebeta Maspalin, for example. And the disadvantage of the misunderstanding about what you don't apply it once, so now some apply it for 4 years.
No.
1 hour it's like grade 8. It's annual because there's a situation where Mtwadi sisa apply la ngwana standard 8. Yabo mtlolete 9, 10, 11, 12.
That's the incorrect.
Yeah. So yeah, it's to some of the schools, but there was no proper communication. So we need to correct systems and enhance the level of communication. But issue the lawyer.
Lawyers.
The
parents.
Actually, we are not using the system at the lawyers, but there are service providers who. That's what just to again how the communication is school or the parents and not going with parents and final particular server. Can you imagine that? Papa na particular server. Also capture how you sense if and need. The lawyers of service providers, the lawyers should be the last option, Thabiso. They must not. Correct. The school finance officer. There are people who might make follow-ups. Just to remind the parents. One, you are honest. I can't even nagging one allocation and begin sa topo. Bexa apply exemption ni beki tola and then beki batla scholos to level. Let's example ka kolotsa makoa and can mention I say you and bo war school over van. That is why you might not see Batubabo na balbanga because how about parliament? Thabiso right to say first time. Wana sa tsa bewa fela ona le holding
suspending
ona le holding wana wa no classing until patala school fees first term. So that thing diba harsh on the side of the learner because we disadvantage wana and also beyond. So ona Obane ke rona ba tshwereng dikolong tse we are still lenient on that because rona re persuade Mtswadi, please try any commitment. You are not saying school fees like the 500, pay that 500. I'm saying make commitment and make contribution. Any amount that you guys answer. It's important because we tell people about now. I can say of school so try quality education of what now have more. Zama now invested to Tunyawa. The last challenge is that Batswadi ba rona ka December ba lebala na le January. Ba no ba lebala go ke mathata ke tswang ho ona. O fumana ba register ba bana bo smart and bo smart dikolo tse patala di registration o patala school fees. Motho ba tla January a le dry. Asna le tšhelete ya dibuka for bana. Pela dikolo tse o reka le dibuka ke re. Ha o fi dibuka ke government. O reka dibuka. Motho ba le dry a ba tlo kopa dibuka sekolong ene o tla itola man sekolong. Hobane man wa ithekela. So be ke ipotsa Mtswadi o ha tsebe ngwana yo pasitse ngwana yo lo etsa grade man sekolong se jwana na. So le teng ha ba encourage gore ba ona batswadi a tswa keng o dula kae for example dula zone 14 tuto tiro ke ena tse ngwana o bile o lo ja mo wa sa itse ngwana mo ebe ka wa mo
class
ya ka wa mtlasa o metsa ntwe fast but o mjotsa di reality o batla lo mo etsa o me encourage gore ho sana ska ipona le mathateng because the end results and totse in these schools study school fees wa referwa how referwa ona le file ya ha ntlo sa patale the amount increase so end up o kolota ha o hlaye ha o report and but balanga advantage ka outbreak covid yena because they lied to the system or abasebetsi. But in the long run, not all our advance and I'm happy because less sasa. So it's aware, but what is about manipulate the system because this letters, what million way produce apply exemptions. It's not more into Thabiso. Waigela fela mo ba confirmelo yes o gola grant mto tla ka lengololo o so qualify for exemption and exemption tse jalo do 100%. So I'm saying it's our duty. I'm not casing everything, but I'm saying it's our duty. Ha ke re ben transparent le rona re buella batho for leader batho a re leader batho le bona ba re thusang ka nnete and so that le batho ba tsebe information these things di etswa jwang kapa di etswa jwang but that one is also la tashwa matlo kapa that one is too much extensive. I discourage that one. I condemn it the wholeheartedly. I write it, but the process they are there. Look, the last part is that even if cerebral loss are there, there's a former on yeah, it's an arrangement form. That arrangement form we catch at your own time. Lore o ka khona Nqai ko a go tshwana la patala installment o fitla mo so sa khone ona le mo ya o fitlo ga nna bana ena ka sa khona to khona Nqai you make an arrangement or nna bana tswa ke nga slimon sena e ga re ntwena ya lona 5000 ya nhlola bana ke tlo fitla about 2000 it's allowed but the bonds are o batla we can say this on now I can school. Let's go also nyamela because the different this thing is that how patala school fees even my colleagues I mean nagia patala impion nagia patala now maruka weekend do onazo la bosulamba ka wa I get the material things o palama likolo itsa odula le pleke tse majavaja wabo ma ha ba to invest tuto nyangwa now it's wrong it's very wrong so I fit out batho ba jwalo ke mo re ba isang di lawyer eta dis because they ba cheated the system and they say ba thotsi lo ba ne ba cheatile system then we make referrals by lawyer dile le bona wa patala fa o patala a ke mtona le wa for akapatala eseng o tlo itshapela motho a sasa of an ordinary person of motho a tshwarang di limit tsa go qualify for exemption. That's the point that I want to clarify so that Yes, it's true, but there are people who might be referred to the lawyers, not everybody.
What we need to communicate, Mshan. Yes. Remember this issue in Rwangan is very contentious one.
Yes.
You can see even between myself and my deputy.
Yes.
The perspective, because it's very sharp. It's very sharp. The thing that I'm not rebuking one is the message about in a nutshell or communicate one SGB members, be aware of your responsibilities.
Yes.
SGB members, be informed of the type of decisions that you are taking, especially the implications. We need to convey a message or parents, please make informed choices when you decide to take your child to a school. Don't do it because you want to feel to belong. Don't do it because you want to feel to belong somewhere. Don't do it because you want to create impression. Don't do it because you are succumbing to the pressure of your neighborhood. There's nothing wrong to stay in Vanderbilt Park and allow your child to recognize on 10. There's nothing wrong. Equally so, there's nothing wrong that because of the given economic situation, there's absolutely nothing wrong for you to adjust your living standard so that you are only indebted. But most importantly, strive to get your child a quality education. It means what you need to do, you need to reprioritize in terms of your lifestyle. If you know the material conditions, you need to cut off and take that money on the services and redirect it to the education. Because at the end, or the bottom line, I want to get the best of education for Wanawak. So it means let's take informed decisions.
I think, Zach, while you are still there, States. I think yes. We have to mention that. At the township school. So that is why we must also lead by example. Or encourage parents or status. The produce of fetal time. You see, education how well English but better countries and developed countries, how can to last and banal interpret. They don't care you go to other this Baba to Menga Holobo Brazil, who was Brazilian of West Arab, Baba Bamclisete Tolog, so Ronakasi, Capo South Africa. Skakibuache that today I don't know English. I'm one of the Bantu education product. So I can't express myself in English. I'm enough and I'm very much happy because that education in Kenzemo today and I'm better than. I'm better than Kayona education. In a limb, for the good cause. So I'm saying, culture of tendency or bana clever. You born to be clever. You just must go away. Why polish and to Bushaliba moto utwalo libo. Now you took his school. Scholars who fellow understand the language, Yabatubaba and Loibueswa, not necessarily clever. I used to see this Banaba again and compared to Banaba model seal Banaba Makation. You can see Lionel Tropongabata, Garaban, they are better than Ba. And it's not like that. It's an issue by a historical social class. There are type of classes in life, but I want we are deep in terms of social classes because Nqai or net loss I say it's out les one reponer lemon.
I think it's very important and the educationally feeling the parents should be high. Who important to be involved in our kids' education. Very important to ngwana hao ha tswa seng a go ya sekolong o tsamaile jwang sekolong o khutlo check hape ho no jwang sekolong mosebetsi wa sekolo le hape le batswadi go banke di initiative. I think le emphasize enough go banke di initiative ba tsebe di process tse o buang ka tsona ha ke tla mo di process that the Thabiso ke bona tsere document is there mobile tswadi maybe ba sa go fitla bo school ba ka tholang such information ya di such processes tsa bo di exemption processes tse teng within the school so go ba be well informed about I think some of them maybe never are aware of the things that they can do in order to make sure that education na ngwana ha be affected. Is there mo ba ka thola information?
Yes, hote. Ke bikarabelo ba rona re le maloko a di-SGB to make sure that every term, remember term is
the parents meeting.
The parents meeting. Then parents meetings are di bitsang kapa di grades meeting. We must make sure that at least renderale a standing item e buang ka ntho tsena tse basic tse batswadi ba tlamme ba di tsebe ka rajarta school se ka ba questionnaire o be motswadi wana a yang fela schoolong ha ilo registera ngwana e be lo re that's the first and the last time how ya school so rona re le ba etapele ba emetseng batswadi ka ra di SGB tsa rona we must make sure that di kopanong tsena tse re di bitsang tsa batswadi tsena tse go tshwana ke di parents meeting le di grade meeting we must discuss these issues tsena di freely available you know go tswa ka rona re di SGBC re informed ha kae is very important also go bohlokwa re encourage SGB members le bona ha ba ntlafatse tsebo ya bona because once ha o ntlafatsa tsebo yao o tlo kgona lo sebetsa mosebetsi ona ka tsela e phethahetseng o tlo kgona re o fanele ka maele a thusang batswadi ba rona ba se ba ithola ba le mathateng ana le batswadi ba bangata ba qetang ba le ho ona mo go bohlokwa ntwa bohlokwa fela gore ha re bane le tshesego ya ho participate ka re thuto ya bana ba rona ha ho bitswa di meeting sekolong ha teacher ka pa principal a le bitsa sekolo make effort or o ye o utlorna ebe ba re ha re batle ntwene ba re ba batswadi bana ba tsona gore wena o fola category ya batswadi bana ba reng ha ya sekolo o tswe ke mhlanga ilolwana o lo rwakana amhlaile sekolo motse o lo rwakana motswadi sabilatsi jwa fela mhlanga qala fela hlamane jareteng ya sekolo sa re fela o tlo rwakana ho tlo shiwa ka jolena sekolo then the last important thing re batlang ho encourage batswadi ba rona ke re kopa part of in parental involvement ka ra thuto ya bana ba rona ha re ensure almost every day on a weekly basis ha ka re checking hore na bana ba rona ba kentse eng ka ra school bag tsa bona because that's another issue le mthata o motswadi o bona ngwana ha wa tswa every day wa tswa wa kena tshwere school bag ha o tsebe o tshwere ka ra school bag se ko bona ntate Nqai ba dula ba etsa this random searches ntse ba di tholang ka ra school bag tsa bana ba rona ke ntho tse tshosang and that's why issue ya go bolayana ya di bullying le dintho tsena di tse tsanang ka re go di sa tlo fela because rona re le batswadi ha re nke the first responsibility ya ngwana na before a tswa e ke re ha a tswa mane mnyako a ro ya sekolo gore ho tlo kwa o bo checka rona o kentseng ka ra sekolo to bona tla thola even la khutla sekolong kwana sa khutlela hae o gore re ke bone school bag sa go se tlhotlhoro se be mona o tlo bona ntho tse ding that's the one of the way of enforce discipline starts at home discipline ha o no thola sekolo it starts here at home discipline enforce wa ke rona re le batswadi le community ene e leng ka ra yona and the other last point re kopa le community ya rona e tloela o vandalize dikolo tsa rona ha re ke re tloela mo thuba dikolo hobane re batla go utswa di laptop ha ke re tloela mo thuba dikolo hobane re batla go utswa di smart board you know it can't be correct for every year the SGB dula di repairana le ntho one because of the neighboring community mona it hotse fela sekolo sa vandalizewa ho tswa di computer ho etswa mehlolo ena please we are making an appeal ra ikokobetsa batswadi re qela hore re ke re hlokomele dikolo sekolo se kara zone 10 ka mona kara is like thuto tiro kapa pitseng kapa sevewe dikolo tsene ke property ya rona re le community eo let's be jealous let's take pride of it re check or ho etsalang around the neighborhood ya rona hle batswadi
yeah
because otherwise re khupela morao
yeah I think last part we must also encourage tabaena dikolo a ditlokwana let dikolo tsena tsa di school ba di bezang di feeding scheme schools you see ke bone into na go dikolo ithujelwa for grocery
exactly
yeah and jalo dikolo di kwetso tlo le bula dikolo grocery se expired and the principal let them SGB tsa mo ba be flexible
proactive
yeah like one of the school etswang o sona normally itlokwala that day bana ba fuwa grocery nenen late batswadi ba tlo fuwa dijo
matitjara ska nka grocery ha ifuwe bana ba tswa ba fuwe tse bona se
batla o encourage ntwe le setjhabeng sa rona dikolo tsa rona di ba vandalize realize one of the schools la to jamona onkwe mabese fela go abankane
ke tlala
ga se go mto wa iketsa na no a ja tshwara tswele bese no tlo etsala so ne batla fela le ma teacher le setšhaba sa rona re protected kolo tsa rona because sekolo se re etsetsa ntho tsa ngata la khona ntshetsa mafumo la khona etsetsa ntho tsa lona mo di gathering so utlwa importance ya that building once you destroy that infrastructure who's going to build it again for you it will be a problem. Thank you.
No, gentlemen, kopa le leboa for availing yourselves kajeno related to the green table. Ke re totla re bua ka this very serious issue ya rona e tsalang dikolo. And I think le ntse hantle la informa the parents high hore the process di tsamaya jwang le hore le ba advice about the correct channels tse ba tlamehang ba di etse to ensure hore re etsa ntho le bileng ka ona curriculum advancement le ho bona hore education ya bana ba rona e ba a quality standard. Ke rata hape le ntho le bileng ya hore all the SGB members ba educate ba be well informed about the process le buang ka tsona so that ba tseba kgona hore ba advise di parents hantle ka di parents meeting and re le bona go le re fileng yona and le batswadi high ke a tshepa ba informed about what they need to do hore di ntho di tsamaya hantle le utlwile issues tse tla re thakela overcrowding ka tsona some of the things tse bontate ba buileng ka tsona le utlwile taba ya violence hore re le community re ka ba involved jwang to ensure
NGOs must help us.
Yes di NGOs tse community ha di kene di thuse sekolo di thuse di SG members ho bona violence ga e thola ka ga e qeta dikolo re touchitse base hape ho taba ya di school fees payment le isa ba to court bontate ba hlalositse hantle hore na what is the actual procedure le hore re lona re le batswadi re na le that responsibility to know hore what is expected of me as a parent and what is expected from me ke tlamehang ho etsa sekolong. Thank you for watching this episode until another episode le bontate tla nne re ba bitse hape so that re etsa hore our parents monana especially kasi ba be well informed about the processes tse re na le tsona within our schools. Bontate re le bela nako lona e le re fieng ana ka je
no thank you.